Compressor does sort of the same thing, but it does it in batches. So something like you could take one movie file and actually overnight batch compress different movie files of different types, like for a PSP or for an iPod or for a video stream, high, low, medium bandwidth, or just plain download, high, low, medium stream. So you can do all this at once, click on it, you know, and does it for you overnight. You just go to sleep. In the morning, you have all those files that you need that you could just link. So that's how Compressor works, and this was actually, it comes actually with what's called the Final Cut Pro bundle. That you can probably get now with an academic discount. It's actually, if you purchase it at an academic discount, it's about $500. So you get all of these Motion, Final Cut, and Compressor relatively inexpensively now these days. The PC, the things that were used in again, writing, you use Microsoft Journal Notes, a TI emulator that actually I don't think you can purchase anymore, but that's on the internet. You can download, and it emulates a TI calculator. And use Camtasia Studio to sort of capture the journal note writing and the TI emulator, you know, effect of working with the calculator. So Camtasia Studio is capturing that, and that's all PC, and a tablet PC, which I think 2 years ago or 3 years ago our department wrote a grant, and we got these tablet PCs, you know, to do sort of work on. And again, I have all the icons of the software that's used here, and this will be up on the internet so that people can look at later and sort of refer to, and again, you can contact me. But that's sort of the essence of the software that was used in creating all the multimedia. The training was sort of, it was a comprehensive training. We sent IT. Who did we send? How many people? I can't remember. I think it was, well, it was one, I guess. They actually, IT, the interesting thing was this is pretty much done on Macintosh computers, not everything, but, and IT had no training in Macintosh. And part of what the motivation behind this training was, I guess there was a streaming server on campus that was purchased that people really didn't know how to use. And they weren't trained for it. And they sort of just, I actually walked in and said, hey, I'd like to do this multimedia and stream it from your server. I hear you have one. You know, can we see how this works? And I just want to check the quality. And what happened was nobody knew how it worked, and they couldn't get it to work. So, you know, I went home frustrated thinking, oh, geez, you know, what are we going to do? And for some reason, in the middle of the night, I just knew, train them. You know, just train them. But, so we wrote in training for IT, which is the Mac OS 100 Intro to Macintosh, Mac OS 200 Server Essentials, you know, how to work with a server, and OS 300 Podcast and Streamed Internet Media. So, in other words, we covered all bases and said, this is what we want to do. And you guys need to learn how to do it. You know, so we also wrote in the training for them. IA training, because some of the sort of reasons that we've got in the past about things were sort of like, well, we didn't. I didn't trust sort of relying on one source and sort of training. I said, you know, let's try to see if we can get an IA trainer, which is Eddie, who can train all the other IAs on all the same things. So that if, for instance, IT was too busy or they couldn't do these sort of things, we can say, well, send our IA can get it done, or can help you to get it done. You know, and that was the idea behind training IAs. So that's where the thought process behind the training was, and what's in the grant is that we're supposed to train all the other IAs and other IT personnel, but it sort of becomes a problem if IAs aren't going to touch the server, then, you know, we can train them, but for what purpose, you know? So, you know, IT may want to, you know, look into sort of training their personnel so that everybody is up to date on it. The faculty training was only in Motion, like I said, in Final Cut Pro, and that was about 2 weeks long. I think, was it 2 weeks? No, well, 8 days. I think 8 days. And again, Viviana and I went to the Final Cut training, and that was learning how to edit and the software to do this. It's a very, very powerful software, Final Cut in Motion. And, you know, we can't ever pretend ever to be experts in it because we went to 8 days of training. It's just too, you know, it's an industry standard. So, but we can do some small things like you see. But it's much more powerful and flexible. They edit movies on this all the time. I have a cousin actually who, if anyone likes football, I guess he works on the Sunday morning Fox football show. You know, he's the guy that makes the sort of broadcasters sound smart and intelligent. what he does is he gets all the statistics that says, hey, we got to find out, like, for instance, what is this guy hitting against, left-handers, in the daytime with the 3-2 count with somebody on third base. They have all those statistics. He's the guy that actually does this. But he's mentioned to me, and he says, that, hey, everybody, all the editors use Final Cut. This is sort of the industry that they use. And so this is just the tool of choice. There's no doubt, And the possible next steps, well, of course, there's basic skills money, and I just dealt with an email not so long ago with someone in the department that says, hey, we want to look at how to do things with basic skills. There's basic skills money, and we could look to sort of do multimedia that assists students with basic skills, whatever exactly all that is. Science and engineering courses, I think this is definitely a place where you want to look at using multimedia. Counseling and transfer, like I said, there's a lot of counseling events, a lot of transfer events that, again, we even get called to sort of assist, and we'll assist anyone, and we'll help. That can be sort of documented, or some multimedia can be created there. Professional development, this is where Evelyn, I guess, will come in. People could get professional development even over online, or video streaming on campus. We sort of talk about that, and I kind of want to focus a little bit now on the alternate delivery system, because there's some information about it. But one big thing, and it's not the only thing, it isn't the only thing, is iTunes University. It's free to a college and a university, meaning that they don't charge the college and students don't pay a thing. And what it is it's just a place where video lectures are stored in terms of for educational purposes. They're going to give us something like 500 gigabytes of storage space, which is a lot. And again, it's free, although they require a campus administrator, which is logical. The only requirements that they have, and again, it's flexible, we can be as comprehensive as we like, but the only requirements that they have is sort of copyright requirements, that we don't post things that other people own. That's essentially it, and they go through a lot of detail about what copyright is and what you can do. So you don't want to post things that other people own, and that's sort of an obvious, but a campus administrator would be in charge of uploading these things to iTunes. And I made a suggestion, possibly it's what, either Chris, oh, there's Chris, Chris or Kyle or somebody from IT or anyone else, but there'd be a campus administrator. And if anybody's familiar with iTunes, this is Apple's sort of answer to Napster. Again, a lot of multimedia, a lot of video and audio is focused there. The sort of internet isn't working well here. I would go into that internet phase at this point, but it isn't working so well. So I actually was prepared and said, well, if it wasn't working, we'll look at a few things. Yeah?
For instance, is that one account like for campus, so the whole college gets 500 gigs? That's it?
Yes. That's my understanding. The college would get 500 gigs, and then at that point, they can create different department sort of files. So every department can have their own file, but essentially you go through that one school, like ELAC. And yeah, it could be whatever you sort of design. But it is one school. However, they want to meet, and we can ask them these questions. Could it be done differently? So those are sort of things that we can even ask Apple about. But yeah, it's essentially a website where all the multimedia is stored and they can download. If they're buying their music from that sort of iTunes anyway, it makes sense that they download free their sort of lectures.
So this is free. How? I mean, it just feels like there has to be a catch to it.
Catch to it?
Yeah.
My sense is, if you look at sort of the tools that are used now, like iPods, there's sort of, these are students use these things. So it just kind of makes sense that they're sort of creating, a marketing strategy to preserve their market share. If anybody's sort of familiar with Apple in the past, what Apple did when their market share was really small, something like 10%. They focused on K through 12, and that was smart. If some of you remember these sort of these iMac